And just like that, the decision changes. Not because the math is different, but because the feeling is. This click doesn't feel like handing over $300. It feels smaller, lighter. And it's not just for the big stuff. The option is everywhere, designed to be seen. We even do it to each other. Pay me back later. Because in our mind, buying and paying don't live in the same room. The pleasure is here, now, complete. The cost is somewhere else. So when the first payment reminder shows up, it feels less like a bill and more like a calendar alert, an admin task. One small, isolated deal. Done. And then the pattern is ready to repeat. A bright, immediate reward here and a series of faint, future obligations over there. So why does our own mind make the future feel so lightweight? The new clothes feel present, part of the evening, already folded into the moment. The first payment for them is still a few days away. The payments are small, lined up with other automatic things. I'll get this, you can just pay me back later. Money others owe us tends to sit in a different mental category. The full number is seen, but it isn't fully felt as a cost. One version acts like a barrier. The other feels more like a plan. Even for everyday purchases, dividing the total into smaller payments can be interpreted as a practical option. The product is here, in hand. Its financial reality is not. The choice is presented not as debt, but as convenience. It's easy to track them as one simple line item. A bright, immediate reward here, and a series of faint future obligations there. And with that click, the transaction feels complete. We often hear a logical idea about money, that breaking a large cost into smaller pieces is simply smarter. When a large amount is divided into smaller units, it's often perceived as easier to handle. That fits with a common intuition, that breaking costs into smaller parts feels more orderly, more controlled. The assumption is that financial feeling is linear, half the price, half the pain. But what if the relationship isn't that straightforward? Because the offer isn't framed as a loan, it's framed as a pricing strategy. So we describe the cost by the installment, not the total. At the same time, there's a subtle pressure to keep experiencing things now. The story becomes about access, not cost. Why wait? The message quietly links immediate happiness with deferred payment. Each small plan feels isolated, insignificant on its own. We would naturally avoid one large, obvious weight, but we're much more willing to accept many small weights without really sensing their combined mass. The immediate benefit is real and tangible. The future costs stay abstract, just dates on a calendar. To understand why this happens, we need to look at a simple mechanism in how the mind processes value and cost. One part of the mind is intensely focused on immediate rewards. Another part is responsible for planning ahead, tracking future costs. When we see something we want, the reward system activates strongly, right now. When the cost is immediate, it's tightly linked to that reward. And that link triggers a subtle, instant feeling, often called the pain of paying. So the decision becomes a kind of mental tug-of-war between immediate reward and immediate pain. But when the payment is delayed, that connection weakens. The reward system gets to react on its own, without the dampening effect of upfront cost. The cost shows up later in the planning center as a note about the future. The pleasure, meanwhile, is experienced now, all at once. The payment happens later, separate, routine, emotionally neutral. So in the decisive moment, the delayed cost carries very little weight. This is because our minds naturally discount the future.
A future dollar simply feels less real than a present one. It's not that we don't understand the cost is coming, it just feels psychologically lighter. So for Alex, the choice isn't really between headphones and $300. It's between a vivid, immediate reward and a faint, future obligation. And the planning mind looks at each small payment as a separate, manageable event. The total cost isn't forgotten, but its emotional impact is divided, contained. So the click happens when the reward clearly outweighs the perceived cost. The reward center registers a win. The planning center, meanwhile, quietly schedules a few small notes for the future. This is the core mechanism, not irrationality, but a predictable tilt in how we perceive value and cost. In this moment, only the music exists. Later, the first payment reminder arrives, a small digital nudge. It sits alongside everything else in daily life. It's handled quickly, a minor administrative task. One item checked off, that mental account feels closed. A week later, browsing again, the pattern is ready to repeat. The system remembers the preferred choice. Now the decision isn't just about one future cost, it's layered on top of others. And the single line item grows, still just one number. This can create a subtle sense that funds feel more accessible in the short term, even though total spending hasn't changed. By the end of the month, the costs show up as a series of small withdrawals spread across different services. There's no single large hit, just a gradual reduction in the month's balance. Social plans appear the same way, often framed with that familiar, convenient option. Another future note is added, separate, contained. Over time, the items themselves fade into the background. They become part of the environment. The future obligations continue to accumulate, neatly scheduled on the calendar. Occasionally, a small payment collides with timing. It's resolved quickly, a minor shuffle of digital funds. But for a moment, there's a bit of friction, a reminder that these are real claims on real money. And the journey continues, with a gradually increasing load, mostly unfelt. As this happens, the threshold for what feels affordable shifts. It's less about the total price, more about the monthly outlay. The planning mind keeps track, managing more and more separate future events. Over time, those small obligations blend together into a general sense of financial awareness, rather than one clear expense. And through it all, the pleasures were real, the experiences were genuine. The payments arrive as routine system messages, handled with very little attention. Over time, future income starts to feel partially allocated before it even arrives. Then an unplanned cost appears, and in that moment, the existing commitments become more visible. What had been experienced as separate entries briefly resolves into a single picture. Some options are set aside, not because they disappear, but because the context has shifted. The present moment now includes an awareness of future dated claims on income. And yet the separation remains. Experience and cost still don't fully meet. The planning system keeps working in parallel, not in opposition. Because the mind represents time unevenly, high resolution now, lower resolution later. So the option doesn't change the cost itself, it changes how that same cost is perceived. A single price becomes a sequence of future events. And the imbalance persists because pleasure and payment arrive on different timelines. Organization follows timing, not the original decision. So when the next choice appears, the moment carries more information than before. But both systems are still active, each responding to different features of the very same offer. Some choices resolve quietly, without drama.
Earlier decisions fade into the background of everyday life. The accumulated load doesn't announce itself, it simply exists. This system is defined by separation, not by error. What was once compressed can be expanded again, depending on context. Occasionally, payment and product briefly align. The boundary becomes more visible, but it isn't removed. The same mechanism applies across necessity and discretion. The tool itself does not distinguish between contexts. The environment reflects past decisions without commentary. These systems coexist, operating on different timelines. The option itself is inert. It represents a trade between temporal experiences. Each offer interacts with how time is perceived. And buy now, pay later works by separating when pleasure is felt from when cost is felt.